I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Graham Noble, Sarah Cowgill, Tim Donner, and Joe Schaefer. And this is Liberty Nation's online TV news program. Election 2020, policy or personality? The question I'd like to throw out to our panel today is, will Americans vote on policy or will they vote on personality? It's clear by now that President Trump's character, his bombastic, optimistic, bold, and always controversial personality, rubs some people the wrong way. Sort of reminds me of the Slim Jim's commercial, the old commercial that said you either love him or you hate him. Yet it's clear that his economic policies, his foreign policy, his policies on race, immigration, helping veterans, blah, blah, blah. You know, most Americans like those and approve of those. So, Joe, how do you see this shaping up? Are people willing to vote on the issues, or do they want to vote for the person they find least objectionable?
You know, personality plays a lot into it, and Trump has succeeded in coming up with his outsider personality that's still intact after 4 years in the White House. But I think this really comes down to Democrats, the establishment media, all of them, they still refuse to give Trump voters credit for they voted for this man for specific reasons. They want an end to the endless foreign wars. They want us to get tough with China on trade. They want to bring back manufacturing jobs. There are specific reasons why they voted for this man, and Democrats don't want to acknowledge that because they don't have any counter arguments to these issues. So all they have is Trump is evil, Trump is bad, got to get rid of Trump. But in this election, it's not going to be, that will not be the deciding factor. The deciding factor will be, do the American people still support the reasons why they put this man into office 4 years ago? And all the blathering, all the gloom and doom is not going to change that, in my opinion.
I think you're absolutely right. I do not see anybody backing off, and this is coming from a perspective of being in the middle of the heartland. So I see people that remember why they voted in 2016, and they have not lost the taste for their president. So I don't see anything that the Democrats do to take away from his base. I mean, sometimes you got to hold your nose and listen to him say something weird, but after that's, said and done, what happens is people were happy. They were happy with the economy. They were happy with the policies. They were happy with him getting tough, doing his Trumplomacy. I don't see this coming down to, Joe Biden's so much more mild-mannered and Kamala Harris is so sweet. I don't see that happening at all.
I think that what we have to keep in mind, though, if we really think about it, is that going back through every election of our lifetimes, in virtually every case, the more likable candidate wins. Now, in 2016, you had Trump and Hillary, who were both sort of at record lows in terms of personal approval. But you go before that, Obama twice, Bush twice, Clinton twice, Bush 41, Reagan twice. And what you get is a series of more likable candidates than their opponents. So I don't want to be vacuous in terms of this analysis of policy versus personality, but personality does matter. But people like to think and will say that they vote on policy. I'm not sure that's always true because sometimes it's just an impressionistic view of where the country is, and they may think a lot of the people that are voting for Joe Biden and have put him ahead in the polls are voting impressionistically, that he's kind of, he's going to be kinder, gentler. He's going to tone down the rhetoric. He's going to be a calm, steady, no drama, Obama type of hand at the wheel. And the question over these last 3 weeks is how hard are people going to examine the actual proposition of Joe Biden, not as a cardboard cutout saying not Trump in the front, but an actual living human being who would become the leader of the free world. Is Joe Biden up to it? The voters better start thinking carefully about that.
I personally think those who are predicting a Biden victory are assuming that Biden is somehow more likable than Trump. I personally don't buy it. I mean, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm weird. I actually think Trump is an extremely likable guy.
We know you're weird, but we like you anyway.
Okay. I think with Biden, it's not that he's really not likable. I think they're just gambling on the fact that they believe he is, as a personality, he is less objectionable than Donald Trump. I mean, nobody is enthused about Biden. Nobody wants to, they always used to say, is this a guy you'd like to have a beer with? Nobody wants to have a beer with Joe Biden. Plus the fact, what is he going to do? Is he going to take his mask off to drink the beer? I don't think so.
No,
so anyway, but the thing is, he's not a likable character. People are not enthused about how much they like him. They're just hoping that he is perceived as less unlikable than Donald Trump. And I don't think that's the case.
Well, I understand what Tim and Graham are saying, and I agree to a large extent, but I would emphasize 2016 was a change campaign. It was different. And when you go back to the Reagan example, I thought 1980 was a change campaign. The American people knew what they were voting for when they voted for Ronald Reagan, and the American people knew in 2016 what they were voting for when they voted for Donald Trump. I have talked to people, working class Pennsylvania people, voted for Obama twice, and they voted for Trump in 2016, are voting again for him, and they know exactly why they're voting for him. When they talk about immigration, it's not just, oh yeah, we got to keep all these foreigners out. They're talking about jobs lost and seeing how communities have changed and how it's the worker is not getting a fair deal. And they like the fact that Donald Trump came along and started talking about these things when no other politician in the major parties were really talking about that before then. People know why they're voting for Donald Trump. It's not just personality. The issues do matter, and they do help him exceptionally.
But you're also saying sort of that people like his personality.
Yes, but I think that is not enough. That does not explain what happened in 2016. That, oh, he's this great guy, he was on TV. It's no, what is this guy saying that all these other people are saying? Do you remember that first debate with all those just wooden Republican politicians? I don't want to give them all their names, but they were just so cookie cutterish. And then this guy's there, and Megyn Kelly goes for the gotcha question. And yeah, it was personality, but it was also just like, this guy is different. This guy is not just reciting talking points. He's not scared. He's going to go up there and just say what he means. And to me, is that personality or is that issue? Well, it's both. But I think with Donald Trump, people wanted to see somebody say something and mean what they say. And that to me is issue-based, not personality. And please, somebody disagree with me. I'd love to hear it.
You're kind of spot on, but people also embrace the fact that here's a guy who's going to fight for us. He's not going to kiss the ass of our enemies. He's going to fight for America. He's going to put America first. And so that bit of, the pugilist in Trump, always raising a fist, and people embrace that. They're like, yeah, somebody's finally going to do something and stop being some tight ass suit wearing nerd.
It is striking, absolutely striking, how little effort the left and the Democrats have exerted in trying to understand the Trump vote from 2016. They simply condemned it, and they have written off every Trump supporter as some sort of, hayseed who drools out the side of his mouth and doesn't know any better. But, Lisa, you and I went to a Trump rally in just past Thanksgiving in 2015 because we were curious to know, who are these Trump people? What is this Trump revolution? Are these people really all, farmers with pitchforks? And we were struck by the diversity and the normalcy or normality or whatever you want to put it, the normal nature of the crowd with everyday Americans. And then we went into the parking lot, which is always the best place to find out sort of the socioeconomic status of the person who's performing inside. And we saw almost nothing but high-end cars. And now people expected pickup trucks, all pickup trucks to the Trump rally. But in fact, the only pickup trucks that we saw, Lisa, were ones that were practically brand new and probably worth over $30,000, $40,000. So they've made no attempt to understand the Trump voter. They simply condemned them. And I think that that's to their detriment. They just don't understand how anybody could possibly have voted for Donald Trump.
Well, this goes back actually to Hillary Clinton's infamous basket of deplorables remark. That was just a monumental miscalculation on her part to say that. But of course, her supporters loved it. But that sums up, I mean, just what you were saying there, Tim. Yeah, you're right. I agree, because it is summed up in exactly what Hillary Clinton did. She dismissed Trump supporters like wholesale, absolutely just painted them all with the same brush. They're a bunch of uneducated backwoods hicks who don't know any better. And of course, that nothing could be further from the truth, in fact.
All right, but I'm kind of concerned that people want boring now. And if Joe Biden is nothing, he's boring. Look, when we saw the Pence Harris debate, everyone was like, I want to debate on the issues. And I thought, yeah, well, this is television. And guess what? After 15 minutes, you all are going to be surfing around for 20 reruns of 24. I mean, people don't like to talk about the issues because they're boring. And Mike Pence, bless his heart, he is, as Tim, you put perfectly last night when you were on another program, as they say, on another network. You said Pence was the yin to Trump's yang. He's humble, he's very
calm,
disciplined, yes, and calm. And Trump is none of those things. He's bombastic and wild, but this is TV and people like that. But now I'm wondering if they've had kind of enough. And so I'm concerned that voters aren't paying enough attention to the policies and platforms of these candidates. Biden and Trump have very different views on fracking, very different views on climate change, taxation, the economy. Biden's trying to tack to the center, but God, he's got Kamala Harris as a running mate. How's he going to do that?
But, I think this was a major, major reason why I thought last night's debate was very important with Pence and Harris. Trump, say what you want, he comes across as authentic. He says what he means and means what he says. That's the way he comes across to his people. Can you win the way Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are doing? It's there. We have the footage for a full calendar year from early 2019 to 2020. They were both saying, we're getting rid of fracking. Fracking's gone, sucking up to the progressive left. And can you go on national TV in a debate, the vice presidential debate, highest stakes, look the people in the eye and say, it is a fact. Let me repeat, it is a fact. He is not going to get rid of fracking. And to say it in like a smug kind of, I'm being a rock of Gibraltar here kind of way, when you are contradicting what you said for an entire year. To me, this is issues here. This is not personality. Can you make that kind of 180 and not turn off the American people? I think it's going to have serious repercussions, and all the personality, all the calm, sober, whatever is not going to change that. That was a major, major mistake, I thought, by just being so strident about it was a major mistake by her last night.
Lest we forget, Kamala Harris was a disaster in her own presidential campaign. I mean, people really didn't respond to her personality at all, a personality which, and I don't say this often, rivals that of Hillary Clinton in terms of lack of likability, the snarkiness, the smirk little smiles at all the wrong times during the Pence debate. I mean, it was not a good look at all. And we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, she absolutely bombed out of her own presidential campaign, and she wasn't some long shot challenger either. She entered the race to great fanfare, had the biggest crowd of anybody making an announcement, And after, other than calling Joe Biden effectively a racist, she had no moments during the campaign. She was all over the place. One day she was a prosecutor. The next day she was a social justice warrior. Her personality was kind of repulsive, especially during the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, where she did not distinguish herself at all, to say the least. We'll see what she does with Amy Coney Barrett. But, Kamala Harris hasn't been resurrected as this sudden dynamic candidate. She was a miserable flop on her own, and she really got significantly outpointed by Mike Pence.
All I want to do is throw in, I hate to stoop to this level, but Lisa, when you were earlier on, when you were talking about the vice presidential debate, you were looking for a descriptive word for the vice president. And I just want to throw in the obvious word you were looking for was pensive.
Oh, very nice.
I have to admit, I'm not a Mike Pence fan. I just don't think he's a make America great guy. He's the perfect vice president. He's the ideal sidekick. But I didn't think he was capable of that performance last night. He was in control from the beginning. Harris is supposed to be the pit bull, the attack dog. She never for a single second came close to laying a glove on the guy. And it was because he was so smooth and he made it look easy. I never really thought he was this fantastically talented politician, but geez, he really opened my eyes. He put on a great performance last night. He really did.
Mike Pence is truly one of the most underestimated politicians in Washington, D.C.
So.
in my view.
I guess I underestimated him.
Well, it didn't hurt that, he was facing someone in Kamala Harris who has literally no depth. Her academic credentials are thin at best. She flips positions on everything. She never goes into substance beyond talking points. All of her points were memorized stuff about, like, Abraham Lincoln didn't fill a Supreme Court vacancy 27 days before the election 170 years ago, or whatever it was. It's just all memorized talking points. I mean, this is a person with no real core principles. And I think we saw that on display in the vice presidential debate.
Yeah, I know I'm talking too much here, but I'd like to get your opinions on this. I wrote in the article, I thought it was very interesting, the dynamic. Pence was the perfect foil to Harris's personality. His whole demeanor brought out to me all of her weaknesses. It's like, okay, you're going to be the tough gal. He's not going to get flapped by that. He's going to be totally serene. Okay, you said your I'm speaking thing. Now say something. He was just serene and calm and waiting for that. And she had nothing to say. So my question to you all is, why didn't the Democrats see this coming when they chose her as the candidate 2 months ago? Do we really want to put her up against Mike Pence one-on-one in a debate? I thought the dynamics, it was never going to be good for her. She was never going to successfully be able to take on what Mike Pence is. And what do you all think about that?
Nothing the Democrats have done has made any sense.
That's true.
For 4 years. So who knows what they're going to do next. But, you can't follow them. You just don't, they don't vet people. They don't look deep. They continue to think if they, pull the pin on the grenade and just lob it, it's going to work. And it doesn't always work. And it didn't work last night. In fact, everybody today was talking about the fly on his head, because what else was there to say other than she lost really badly? The fly. Seriously.
Yeah. I think there was insufficient gravity attached to this vice presidential debate, because traditionally, for example, people, how many of you remember the debate between Mike Pence and Tim Kaine from 2016? I barely remember that it even happened. Vice presidential debates are just usually window dressing. There's a few memorable lines like "You're no Jack Kennedy" that was uttered, by Lloyd Benson to Dan Quayle. But as a whole, vice presidential debates traditionally are meaningless. But this one is not, because in both instances, with Biden because of his evident cognitive decline, and with Trump because he's down with the COVID, you've got a greater chance than ever that not only one, but either one of these vice presidential candidates is more likely to ascend to the presidency without being elected than any vice presidential candidates in history, I think.
Joe, here's why, in my humble opinion, I don't think they were thinking about the optics between Harris taking the stage or to Pence, or they were thinking, look, it only happens once. And what we need to do is play identity politics, and we need a Black woman. And so they just went after that. And they vetted, 4 or 5 Black women and felt that she fit the bill and figured, well, she can muddle through pretty well last night. And frankly, I think she did muddle through pretty well. I mean, Pence landed his punches, the plagiarism, but most people aren't even old enough to remember Neil Kinnock's speech and that Joe Biden plagiarized it, or that he was at the bottom of his class, or any of that. If you have to search way down in Google, even find that kind of stuff. So, and Pence landed a few punches when he said, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to the facts. Good stuff. But again, it was more important to the Democrats to have a Black woman than the optics of one evening. That's just my.
Absolutely. I agree.
I agree with that part of what you're saying. I do not agree that she put on any kind of a good performance. I thought she was really and truly atrocious. And she was atrocious throughout the Democratic primary process, as Tim said. Why did they think anything was going to be different? They saw what she had to offer. She couldn't outclass the likes of Beto O'Rourke and Julian Castro. She didn't separate herself from that kind of mediocrity. And sure. Everybody was writing about this. Everyone was saying this. It's the March of the Turtles. It's a bunch of minnows. And this is such a boring process. And then they go and pick her. I just can't. I understand what Lisa's saying, and I guess that's the reason. But do they have any foresight whatsoever? I just can't believe it.
The March of the Turtles? The March of the Turtles. That is really good.
Well, they boxed themselves into a corner. I mean, Biden boxed himself into a corner because he said he would pick a woman at any cost. And then he later basically said he would pick a woman of color at any cost. And when you narrow the list down of people who can be passed off as ready for the Oval Office, Kamala Harris was alone on that list.
All right, Graham, once again, you get the last word.
I would really love to make this segment even more entertaining than it's been by completely disagreeing with somebody, but I have to agree with you, Lisa. I believe that the selection of Kamala Harris as Joe Biden's running mate was based on nothing beyond the fact that she is a woman of color. That's all there is to it.
Real quick, do you think Obama made that call?
If you're asking me, Joe, personally, no, I don't think he had anything to do with it, actually. Okay. I think it was, I think that's all the Democrats were focused on. I mean, they've got Joe Biden up there, an old white man, and they all knew that they had to have a woman of color as his running mate. I think it was probably a unanimous thought.
Well, I wonder which demographic group, the personality ones or the policy ones, who will put the issues first and who will put the policy first, who knows? Ultimately, the demographics on Election Day will prove to be fascinating. And that's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other segments on your favorite video platform. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember, surf on over to LibertyNation.com, subscribe to our popular conservative news daily briefing, visit our Roku channel, and now we have a Rumble page where this program can be seen along with all our other Liberty TV shows. And remember, guys, Liberty all the time and everywhere.
Election 2020 Big Bottom Flash Reports are coming. On election night, at the bottom of every hour, LibertyNation.com will give you Election Night 2020, 90 seconds at a time, with our Big Bottom Flash Reports. You'll get the drop with our one-stop shop. We'll shed the light on Fight Night. Tune into LibertyNation.com on election night for our Big Bottom Flash Reports at the bottom of every hour. 90 glorious seconds for everything you need to know without the spin.